Hello, 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 and welcome to a brand new episode of the Uncovering Greatness podcast. I am your co-host, Suleiman Steele, and today I am joined by Nicole Mitchell. Nicole is, my opinion, I'm just giving my opinion here and my thoughts on this. For me, probably one of the best processors in the world. She'll tell you a little bit more about who she is and what she does. But my viewpoint is she's one of the best processors on this planet to help you get out the way of you. The Uncovering Greatness podcast is our weekly podcast where we talk about everything from entrepreneurship to business to mindset to health. And every month we delve into a brand new topic and we try and unpack that from our experts, Nicole, Barry, myself, Michaela, Michelle, and any other people that we bring into our space. And with that being said, today is Nicole. I think this is the first one of the year, no?
I think so, yeah.
That's crazy. First episode of the year that you are on. Please tell the people who you are and what you do on the team.
So as Sully said, my name is Nicole, and what I bring to the team is I help you get yourself out of the way of you. So, the biggest thing I think so many of us know we can do more, have more, be more. We know exactly what we need to do, but we just can't bring ourselves to do it. And so I just help people remove whatever it is that's stopping you from having more, doing more, being more, becoming more, doing the things you need to do. So, I don't know anybody that doesn't want to have more in their life. Whether it's more money, whether it's, better health, whether it's more relationships, more time, everybody's looking for something more. And so for me, it's not about dealing with all the issues. It's dealing with how do you work to having more. And I think a lot of people associate processing with, you've got to go digging for all the traumas in your past and that sort of thing. But for me, it's not about that. It's about putting yourself in a space where you can look at what is stopping you from having more.
I mean, it's funny that you actually make that point because that was actually me, right? I've been processing for a few years now, and I feel like I just kept on digging up my past. And I was like, I got to draw a line in the sand and figure out, well, what do I want? Because talking about that all the time is not helping the situation, right? Because I just end up stuck. Mm-hmm. So from your perspective and your expertise, what is drawing a line in the sand?
Well, that's very broad. But in terms of the topic that we're looking at, it's, are you willing to draw a line in the sand and actually move forward? Because a lot of us know we want to have more, do more, be more, but we are not prepared to draw a line in the sand over it. We go, well, one day when I do this or have this or what have you, then I'll go after my dreams. Or, and sometimes you just got to draw a line in the sand and say, no, today is the day that I change. So I use an example, silly example, but I've been struggling with recovery from an injury with my arm, and so I went to see a chiropractor, and one of the things he asked me was, do you sleep with your arm like this? And I'm like, no, I don't. I said, I sleep with my arm straight. And he said, great. So I've been very conscious of how I've been sleeping. And what I found is that my right arm I'm sleeping with straight, as I told him, but my left arm, I'm actually sleeping with my hand under my pillow, and my left arm is bent. And so, in terms of drawing a line in the sand, it's like, well, the chiro told me not to sleep with any of my arms bent. So what am I doing? And I found myself the first few nights I was lying there going, well, there's nothing wrong with my left arm, so it's okay. I'll just sleep like that tonight. And over the 3 days, I was like, what am I doing? Yeah. I'm allowing myself to keep continuing with the bad habit that the chiropractor told me I shouldn't be doing. But because there's nothing wrong with my left arm, it's actually my right arm that's the issue. Well, I'm just going to keep doing it. So I was like, no. Draw a line in the sand, and make sure you don't sleep with your arm under your pillow. Make sure you straighten your arms or put your arm in a different position so that you're not locking up the joints while you're sleeping. So it's, are you willing to do something now? Because most of us kind of go, well, when, at the end of the month, or I'll start an eating plan next week, or, I know I need to get on top of my finances, but I'll do it, I don't know where to start, so I'll, as I find the area where to start, then I'll start.
It's like I'm broke, so why do I need to look at my finances? I don't have money anyway, so why do I need to look at my finances?
So, when I have money, then I'll look at my finances. But the issue that unless you draw a line in the sand, you are never going to have money. You're always going to be broke.
Yeah. So this
unless you win the lotto, and then you'll be even more broke.
Oh, then the lines. Now you have a bunch of lines just everywhere. So, from your perspective, how different is drawing a line in the sand to creating boundaries?
Well, it's context. It's very, I think it's understanding, well, do you need to have boundaries? What is the value of boundaries? So if I look in terms of simple, what is my boundaries when I'm sleeping? Like and it's like I put a physical boundary in it in terms of, is my bed too small? Is it the place that I'm sleeping? Do I need to change my pillows? Do I need to, so when I draw a line in the sand, yes, I have to have those boundaries because I need to be aware of what is the cause of me not having, not drawing a line in the sand previously.
Yeah.
So you have to have those boundaries in place. And a lot of people are afraid to put those boundaries in place because what if I offend somebody? What if I upset somebody? What if people don't like me if I put those boundaries in place? So, for example, if I now decide I want to take charge of my finances, let's say I'm broke, I want to take charge of my finances, and now I've got to go to my daughter and say, well, you're not allowed to do this. And, well, what is she going to think of me? And people go, oh, I don't want to do that just in case they get upset with me. Someone was telling me on the weekend that her kids have been playing this game, and then, in order to go to the next level, it's 350 Rand, and they just go, bing, push a button. Oh, Mom, we just entered your card details because we wanted to go to the next level. And that's where boundaries are so important, because if you're trying to get on top of your finances and your children are just take your credit card and just load it, and then one of the issues today is that Google remembers, so Google automatically enters it, and your children just have to remember 3 digits, which is this
that CVV thing.
the CVV number.
Yeah.
So they have to remember, 1, 2, 3 numbers. That's it. They don't even have to remember the whole card because Google does it for them. And so now they're automatically doing those things, and at some point you've got to draw a line in the sand, put those boundaries in place, and say, no, you cannot use my credit card or my debit card or whatever it is. And people often don't think of that.
And I mean, then that sort of becomes the point in time where you draw a line in the sand, right? Because now your kids are, the boundaries they blurred. Your kids buy whenever they want to buy. Now all of a sudden, because as you say, you're trying to get on top of your finances, you're like, no, I'm done. I'm taking everything away from you. And all of a sudden now there's a bunch of, there's confusion, right?
Yeah, because your boundaries weren't clear in the beginning. So now you have to put hard boundaries in. They're not soft boundaries. They have to be these hard boundaries that are non-negotiable, whereas previously they were sort of semi-negotiable. But that's often the reason why you are where you are, is because you didn't have those rules in place. You didn't have that, I've got no problem with you using my card, but you need to ask my permission first.
Boundary.
That's a boundary. So you didn't put those boundaries in place, so your kids just use your card whenever they want. And this happens in businesses, is suddenly people just go, well, I'm just entertaining clients, so I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and there's no boundaries, or they're filling their car up 3 times a week, and those kind of things. It happens in business. People are not even aware of the expenses. They're not tracking it. Employees just go, well, the boss should pay for me because, and suddenly the company's doing badly, and you think, well, the company owes me. But if you actually stop, and if everyone in the company is doing that, well, suddenly 3 months time there's not going to be a company to work for. because the company didn't put the boundaries in.
Yeah, and then like with that example, you have a boss who then draws the line in the sand. It's like nobody is getting a petrol card because of A, B, C, D, E, and then that has its own knock-on effect. And so, I mean, would you say that also drawing a line in the sand could be negative?
Well, it generally is negative because you've got to overcome a whole lot of emotional things in order to move forward. And generally the reason why people draw a line in the sand is because something's not working. Okay. So people will, let's use health for example. People just kind of eat whatever they want, they don't exercise, and then suddenly they go to the doctor and the doctor says, if you don't change something, you're going to have a heart attack and you're going to die. Now they are forced to draw a line in the sand because their behaviors have been negative, so now they have to draw a line in the sand, and it is so much harder to do that because now you're being forced to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas often, and then it's harder because now suddenly I'm not allowed to eat this and I'm not allowed to do that, I'm not allowed. Whereas when you make the decisions on yourself and you draw a line in the sand and go, okay, from tomorrow I'm going to start exercising. Drawing a line in the sand, it is non-negotiable. 4 times a week I will exercise.
Yeah.
That's a lot easier. It's still a negative because you've got to get over all the issues and emotions of having to get out of bed at 5 o'clock to go exercise at 6. You've still got to go through and force yourself through all those things. So yes, it's going to turn on a lot of negativity, and people are going to say, oh, I'm not getting up at 6. Why on earth would you want to get up at 5 o'clock? Do you know that we're going into winter?
Ludicrous
and
behavior.
Now and people are, the moment you draw on the line in the sand, you're going to be forced and faced with opposition. You're going to have people telling you, you're crazy, that's ludicrous, how can you do that? I mean, we did a CrossFit competition on the weekend, and the number of people that have said to me, you're nuts.
Why?
Because I did a CrossFit competition, and at my age, I'm going to hurt myself, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and what have you. And it's going to be bad for me, and all these kind of things. And I look and I go, but the benefits are huge for me. Is that I know that I can, if I use the example, we traveled, I had to lift suitcases. It's something simple that we do every day. We lift suitcases.
Yeah.
And, also we went to visit my mom, and she's 80, and in terms of she wants to change one of her rooms around her lounge, and she can't pick up the TV. And it's like, so she was so grateful that I was there and I was able to do it and move the stuff and help her and sort everything out for her. But I'm looking and I'm going, I don't want to be 80 and not be able to pick up my TV. And so it's it's in my interest now to draw that line in the sand and say, well, I understand that you don't want to do CrossFit, and that's fine. That's not your want. That's not your desire. That's okay. But it is my want.
Yeah.
And I'm going to draw a line in the sand, and I'm going to do CrossFit every day, or,
and I mean,
some form of exercise every day.
With that, like, the example of CrossFit and people saying you're crazy and all of that for your age, if you hadn't drawn a line in the sand for yourself, knowing why, so I'm doing this for my reason, right? You've drawn a line in the sand, getting healthy is what I'm doing. How easy does it then become when people do say those things where they're like, for your age, and now all of a sudden you're sitting and you're going, yeah, I probably am too old to be doing CrossFit. I should probably stop. And then you stop. Does it make it easier for you to quit things when you haven't drawn a line in the sand?
Oh, absolutely, because it's easier to go into agreement. And I mean, CrossFit is, the physical is such a great example.
Yeah. Because
you can see the effects. When we look at mindset and business and money, it's very difficult to see the effects. Okay. But in the physical, we see the effects. So I just look and I go, yes, I had a shoulder injury and I see the chiro and I'm getting needles in my bicep or whatever. But that is very different to the group of, like there's a group of ladies that I meet with fairly regularly, and this one's having a shoulder op and this one's on this medication and this one's on that medication, and this one's having a back op, and I look and the difference in terms of the physicalities that you can see versus how I feel. Yes, I had a shoulder injury, but I was working through recovering from my arm injury versus going to have a shoulder operation, which this lady has had 2 and it hasn't worked, and she's not doing her rehab work and her shoulder's not getting better and blah blah blah. And then I look at everybody as a general, the health, I'm in a very different position than the rest of the ladies in the group, and they're all similar ages.
Yeah.
And from a health perspective, I'm in a way better position now because I drew a line in the sand, and I don't go into agreement with them that I shouldn't be exercising 3 times a day or 3 times a week, because they're not doing that.
Yeah.
And that's what happens in business, is people do the same things. We go, well, putting a process in is going to be hard, so we'll just do it as and when we feel like it. So, and we just wing it.
Yeah.
And then because we don't see the effects on it, the effects are not tangibly measured until you have no money. Business is broke. That's the problem in business, is a lot of things are not, you cannot physically see the effects of it.
Yeah.
So people don't measure numbers. They don't measure the things that work. They don't do the same things every day. So I see it often at events that we go to, is people, this time they've done it up and it's super, done up super well, and then the next time you go, it's like half of what it was last time. And people don't understand that the effects of something like that, even just in terms of the decor and that sort of thing, can make a significant difference to whether people come back or not. But it's not tangible. It's not something
touch and feel it.
You can't touch and feel it. So people don't realize the effects of drawing a line in the sand.
I mean, so you did say it a little bit earlier, but I want to just delve into it a bit more, because I feel like, would you say that you deal with a lot of trauma, not you personally, in terms of what you do as a processor?
So, trauma is an interesting word, but
it's a buzzword.
It's a buzzword, but what I deal with is I deal with people's experiences. Okay.
Ooh.
So, and that's where you can have 4 people in the same car accident, and one person will say, I'm never getting in a car again, I'm never doing this, I'm never doing that, I'm never going to drive on the highway, and the other person's going, man, what a rush, that was so cool. It's exactly the same experience, but it's had a different effect. So I am dealing with the experience and the effect, because whether the experience and the effect was negative or positive, it can affect you just as badly. So that, woohoo, this was such a rush, can affect somebody worse than somebody who says, I'm never going to get in a car again.
Yeah.
Because there's somebody that was like, woohoo, this is such a rush, suddenly they become a reckless driver, and they're looking for the rush, and they're chasing that high of near-death experience and all this stuff. It can be just as damaging as the trauma of the car accident.
Yeah.
Oh, that was awful, I'm never driving again. So it's understanding that drawing a line in the sand is, I'm going to deal with this, whether it's good or bad.
Got you.
Because in order for me to move forward, I need to deal with it. And whether it was a good experience or a bad experience, I need to deal with it. And that's often what people don't realize, is that they actually need to look at not the experience itself, but what were the effects of it.
So would you say that drawing a line in the sand is it's a bit more regular it should be more regular than, you wait for something to happen and then you're like, enough, I'm not doing this anymore. Like you used the example of you eat badly, you end up go to the doctor says if you don't change, you're gonna have a heart attack and die. Now you have to draw the line. Actually, the line is drawn for you. You didn't draw it yourself. Right. Versus continuously drawing. Would you say that every single day you've got to draw a line in the sand for your life?
It depends on where you're at, but I would say most people generally need to do that, because if you are, let's say, for example, just making cold calls, if you've got to make 5 cold calls, you need to draw a line in the sand and say, today I'm making my 5 cold calls, and for every day this week, that's what I'm going to do. And what people do is they draw a line in the sand today, and they go, today I'm making my 5 phone calls. And then 3 weeks go by, and they look and they go, oh, remember when I made my 5 phone calls? They don't draw the line in the sand the next day and say, today I'm making my 5 phone calls. They draw the line in the sand for that moment and go, that's it, I'm making my 5 phone calls. Then the next day they go, oh, well, I did my 5 phone calls yesterday, so I'm not going to do it today. And then 2 weeks go by, and then suddenly their business is struggling again, and then they go, oh, I need to, and then they draw a line in the sand again, and it's irregular. And they don't draw a line in the sand until it becomes the norm. So, because the 5 phone calls is uncomfortable, we have to draw a line in the sand. Okay. But you have to keep drawing a line in the sand until the 5 phone calls every day becomes the normal for you. It becomes easy. You don't even think about it. You just make your 5 phone calls. Then you don't have to draw a line in the sand because it's easy. But it's like going to the gym. If I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week, when I first start, I can guarantee you the first 3 months is going to be hell.
Sucks.
Because you negotiate every day. Should I? Shouldn't I? Oh, I'm so tired. But until it becomes the normal. So, like for me, for example, we did a CrossFit competition over the weekend. My body's tired. I had to negotiate with myself this morning not to go to CrossFit. Because my body's exhausted from the weekend. Yeah. It needs rest. And now I'm negotiating with myself, you're not going this morning. Rather sleep in. You can do, some stretching or whatever later, but your body needs rest right now because you worked extra hard on the weekend. So now it's the norm. I have to draw a line in the sand around resting as opposed to the other way, whereas 6 months ago I was drawing a line and said, I will go to CrossFit. Yeah. And then it's until it becomes normal. And then at some point, normal changes. So like today, my body's tired. I had a rough weekend. I'd exerted myself more than I have ever, probably in my entire life. Now I've got to negotiate to rest. And I've got to draw a line in the sand and say, no, rest. Because otherwise I'm going to get injured.
If you drew the line in the sand to say, no, I'm going, this is what I'm doing, the effects of that could be way worse than you actually going, I'm drawing a line in the sand and I'm going to rest.
Because my body's tired, I'm more likely to get injured. Yeah. Because, I've overexerted myself, my body's tired, I'm more likely to make a mistake. And this is what happens in business. Yeah. People do the same thing. You've got the one extreme of I've got to make my 5 phone calls every day. And then you've got the other extreme where I'm working 5 in the morning until 11 at night. And we're going through that every day. And suddenly it becomes the norm. And at some point you've got to take a step back and go, no, this weekend, my kids have got this on. I'm going to negotiate, draw a line in the sand. This is my kids' weekend. I'm going to spend time with them or family or whatever, rest So it's finding the right balance in the moment that works for you. Because so often people think I need to find balance now. No, your life is never going to be in balance. But it's finding balance in the moment. So the exchange is I need to serve my kids, like I need to serve my body, or I need to rest my body, whatever it is, because I've worked hard. And that in the moment you need to find the balance. If that makes sense.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And I think that because even while you were speaking, like if you take the example of in business, if you're working from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. consistently and it becomes a norm, because you've drawn that line in the sand, you're going to make some mistakes. And sometimes you could make some really detrimental mistakes to your business because, like you said, you're just not resting. Your balance is off where you're trying to go, ooh, this balance is normal for me, but it's actually not. It should be, you should find a balance that actually does work for you, right?
And yeah, there are times in our lives where we need to work from 5 a.m. until 11 at night for 2 weeks in a row.
For sure.
Entrepreneurs are, there is time where that happens. I mean, you speak to any accountant now, it's tax season, they're trying to get everything done. They are working seriously long hours.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a time where it changes, where they need to shift and go, we need to rest so that we don't make the mistakes. We don't, mess up the numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it from like a UGE perspective. It's 6 days of, this is what we have to do, this is what we're doing, this is where we have to draw a line in the sand. And I think that's a great sort of point to end it, because like we draw a line in the sand from the moment actually before we even leave to go to the venue. And that's it for 5 days. This is what you're focusing on, come handle high water. And then you sort of slow it down once the event is over. But a line is drawn and you go with that. How important is it to submit to the line that's been drawn?
Well, there's no point in drawing a line in the sand if you're not going to submit to the line, because, then why waste your time, effort and energy? You've got to, when you draw a line in the sand, that's it. You've got to submit to that process.
Fantastic. So, Nicole, any final thoughts before we wrap up this week's episode?
Just drawing a line in the sand is not easy, but it is worth it.
Boom. Just like that, we have come to the end. That actually went a lot faster than I thought it would. So we come to the end of another episode of the Uncovering Greatness podcast. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for watching. As always, you guys can find the podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and anywhere else that you guys listen or watch podcasts. Don't forget that you can leave us comments. Let us know your thoughts. Are we adding value? Aren't we adding value? You have some questions. What would you like to know? And yeah, thank you, Nicole, for joining us. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Thank you for your time. It is always appreciated. And I will see you next week. And I will see you guys next week as well. Be awesome, stay blessed, and have a fantastic week. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye.